Jaden Rashada is suing Florida and Billy Napier for a bunk NIL deal that fell through.
I don't know if there's a story that more sums up the state of college football right now than this one.
Well, I wanted to kind of talk about this with you because I'm finding our dynamic is growing a divide. And not a divide is like not liking each other. Growing a divide of interests. I am all in on college football. It's probably the sport we talk about the most, just edging NFL. Because your Ducks are almost always relevant. My Beavers are a very interesting spot right now. And then you've got the Huskies and you got occasional Cougars and everything, right? The 12-team playoff is this year.
It's easier to cultivate the show to audiences that care about the teams because the NFL is all over the map.
It's all, and Portland
and we all love the NFL, but fan bases are all over the map.
And some fans are a little sensy, and some fans' teams are in the dumps, and some fans' teams are questionably contenders. It's all over the board. College football is unique for us, and where the divide is about a week ago, we heard from a listener, and I'm now, as we're on the air, blanking, but we had a listener basically reach out and say they're tired of this NIL stuff. And again, I'm blanking on what the story was, but they were responding to a tweet. And it's basically like, just get out of this, stop this madness. And I think that's where a lot of fans are getting. And I can tell you where the divide on our show is Jaden Rashada files a lawsuit against Billy Napier. I'm kind of just tired of keeping up with some of this stuff. The lawsuits and the NCAA and the unions and the settlements and the yearly payouts. And, it's kind of just becoming numbing to me from a sports standpoint. I don't care about that stuff. This is not interesting to me. I'm interested in Coach Hot. I'm kind of interested in the barbershop stuff. The Coach Hot seat. Is this quarterback good enough to win a title?
Is Dabo going to get fired at Clemson if they win 7 games this year?
Will this team take a leap? Is this team going to be a top 4 hosting a playoff game in the first? I'm kind of interested in that, like the on-field stuff. And I'm finding player payout and lawsuits and NCAA future. God bless you for keeping up for our show's sake. I'm not. I'm kind of over it. No disrespect when I say this. When Ross Dellinger sends out a tweet with a news story, I don't read them anymore. I'm kind of over it. I don't understand all of it.
Yeah.
We don't have a clear-cut path of where this is going to go and be, and so
no clue.
This is starting to impact me from a sports standpoint of I don't care. Now, this is a little different. This is a lawsuit at a coach. And I have an angle with it, but just I want to let you know in general, we're starting to have a divide where I know you're following it.
Sure.
But I'm starting to not follow it.
So I would say I have a lot of the similar feelings and reactions that you do to these stories. My team is so wrapped up into the big world of college football now that I'm fascinated to see where it goes. And if you reach a settlement on what you can pay players, that directly impacts my college football fandom because we currently can go afford basically anybody we want to go to afford, and that might not be the world that we live in. So that's part of the reason that I'm staying up on it is I'm just curious where the sport's going to go. But I agree with the overall sentiment, and I think the listeners do too. I feel this way as a golf fan. I've gotten to the point now where the whole nauseating conversation about LIV versus PGA and format and do we want a super tour that's worldwide and, hey, there's guys resigning from the PGA policy board and they won't let Rory McIlroy back on. I don't care. Figure out what you want professional golf to look like. Get the best players in the same tournaments more often than not. That's all that I want. That's all that I'm asking. And I think most people are there with college football of dude, we know that the players are going to get paid. We know that this is going to be ugly. We know there's going to be a shady side of it. But can we just come up with some decent level of guardrails and some sort of competency of what this is going to look like for the next 10 years and then move on? I think they're the only 2 sports right now. The NBA does this more of a controversial, should this guy demand a trade? Should this guy want out? But they're the only 2 sports where we don't spend a lot of time in the offseason talking about the actual sport like we do in the NFL. We're going to get to a Trevor Lawrence thing today, or we'll get to other. Hey, should the Dolphins pay Tua? How does that contract look? Camps are going on. What are the expectations for the Chargers this year? It's conversations about football. Hey, the schedule came out. Can you believe this game is going on here? You're talking about the actual sport. This is talking about things that are all on the outside. And I wish we could fast forward to the point where We know what the model is. We know we're going to go to some sort of super league. We know there's going to be a union. We know these guys are going to get paid revenue sharing. Like, of course that's where we're going to end up. They can't end up any other direction because of the lawsuits that will take place if they do. I just want to get there so we can get back to talking about and focusing on the sport that we love, because I am genuinely thrilled for this season. I think it's very similar to a year ago. All we were talking about at this point a year ago was the television contract, what's going to happen to the Pac-12, when are they going to sign it, and it was all this future speculation. How bad is it going to be? Is it, oh, don't worry, they're going to get $30 million, or oh, don't worry, they're going to get Fox. And then, like, the bomb dropped a couple weeks before the season started, and then the season started, and at least for a bit, it was a respite of like, we're just talking about, hey, can you believe Oregon almost lost to Texas Tech?
Right.
Hey, can you believe Oregon State looked really good against San Jose State in their opener? And it was just talking about the sport, and I'm very excited to get back to that.
On the Rashada note, let me ask you this. You said you think he's going to get fired, Billy Napier.
Yes.
If they indeed have the text and this comes out, it's a real awkward spot, and maybe I'm overstepping here by asking this. Is it possible he gets fired before the year? When you get caught with this kind of text, you start implicating yourself to the NCAA and what that can mean. Not that they have any power, but they'll step in here. You know they will.
They've already done it with Florida State. Florida State's asking for a re-ruling on their NIL filings or whatever. But coaches are not supposed to have direct knowledge of offers to players.
And he is obviously kind of sitting in a lame duck season where if he doesn't accomplish whatever their expectations internally are, it feels like they won't hesitate to can him. Now, maybe I'm misreading the spot. I don't cover Florida. I don't read everything Florida Gators, but my observation as a college football fan that consumes a lot of content on and off season, it feels like it's kind of a lame duck year for him.
Yes, it does.
But now you have a lawsuit against you and the university and your collective with maybe evidence of him, the coach, texting a dad, promising 7 figures to a 4-star high school player because he's so desperate.
Yes.
Is there a shot we have a Florida job opening before the season even starts?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I honestly wouldn't at this point.
Man, that'd be wild.
Because I think the university has to do what they need to do to protect themselves, and they can say, oh, this was a coach going rogue, and we didn't know he was going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. They're going to try and save themselves at the end of the day. Florida cares a lot more about Florida than they care about Billy Napier. I mean, the other fan base that will always be impacted whenever this university is brought up is the one up north. And it was the one concern when you hired Jedd Fisch. I thought what he did at Arizona was incredible. Turning that program around and making them relevant was a great success story. But Jedd Fisch is always going to have his eyes on the next job. And that was the fear when you hired him. And the idea that Florida might even open up before the season begins, like, of course there's going to be a conversation there.
Because they get a whole year runway to start really.
And you go interim coach for a year.
Canvassing that
hold
landscape.
it all together.
Yes, and saying who really it can. Because they've been stuck in this coach turnover. They've made bad decision after bad decision post-Urban.
And I would argue firing Dan Mullen was a bad decision. I think they pulled the plug on that too quickly.
Maybe they did, but it has not gone well post-Urban.
Nope.
Urban left Florida in what, 08, 09? 10?
Yeah, 10 probably.
Somewhere in that range, right? It's 2024.
Yeah, nearly 15 years ago.
And they've had a couple years where they've record-wise been fine, but that program and those boosters and that fan base want to be Georgia. They want to be Alabama. They want to be in the SEC title game. They want to win the SEC.
I mean, they've won multiple national titles.
I mean, to me, they're a blue blood. That's a program that, and right now they're trending into the Nebraska-Tennessee territory where, obviously Nebraska hopes Rule turns that around. Tennessee had an 11-win season 2 years ago, and they hope to come back to that. Man, it's just like tanking in the NBA. You have your stories you can point to and say, see, they hired Harbaugh and they won a title. Yeah, what about that program and that program and this program? It's not always easy to get yourself out of the gutter, and Florida has kind of been repeatedly making bad decisions to a point where we haven't talked about them on a title level in God knows how long.
So Steve Spurrier's last year there was 2001.
Okay.
They hired Ron Zook to be their head coach after that. 3 years.
Yep.
Then they go get Urban Meyer in 2005. We all know how that went. Ran the shadiest program in the country. They won 2 national titles. His last year there was 2010.
Okay.
Went 8-5 in his last year. Remember, he said health issues.
I have a heart attack.
I'm never going to coach again. That lasted 2 years. They went and hired Will Muschamp, who went 7-6, 11-2, 4-8, 7-5. Fired him. Hired Jim McElwain, 10-4, 9-4, 4-7.
Naked
fired
Shark
him.
guy.
Naked Shark guy. Dan Mullen, 10-3, 11-2, 8-4, 6-7. Fired him. Billy Napier has been 6-7 and 5-7 in 2 years there.
Yeah.
And he will be fired. There's no doubt about it.
You don't think there's any doubt he's
zero
gonna be
doubt
fired.
in my mind. I'd be willing to bet every penny in my life savings that Billy Napier a year from now is no longer the head coach of Florida. For whatever reason.
I want to take that.
Whether it's for this NIL stuff, whether it's for anything like he is going to get turfed. We just need to get to a point where, and this is why I'm following the settlement stuff, because although it's not beneficial to my program, I just want to get to a point where there's like, here's your pool of money, go spend it on your players. You can sign them to contracts. This is how it's going to work. It's not a collective. It's not a rumored report. It's hey, they signed this 5-star kid out of this school for a 3-year deal worth $7.5 million. And you know the amounts and you have this much money to play with. And it's a salary cap system. Essentially, just having guardrails on it, I think, makes a lot more sense than these shady-ass deals of we're going to give you $14 million, kids seeing money signs all over the place as an 18-year-old. Hey, well, why are you $1 million if you sign today? Okay, I'll sign today, coach, and then he doesn't see a penny of it. It's a shady, shady world, and it needs to be brought to the light, and I'm hoping the settlement eventually gets us
And
there.
one way to kind of maybe curtail some of the portal stuff, because I know fans hate seeing players just jumping and going year to year. It's kind of become basketball in a way. Do you add buyouts to these contracts once you get to that point and say, hey, you want this kid and he wants to transfer? You owe us X amount of money.
Yeah.
So you can just replace that in the portal or recoup the money that you've spent on the player that you unfortunately might lose.
I think contracts are the way to fix it, and there's risk on both sides. The player could sign a 3-year deal but pop after year 1 and be worth more money, but you signed a 3-year contract. Or vice versa, a school could sign a kid to a 5-star kid to a 4-year deal.
2-year deals with options.
2-year yeah, I mean, that's where we need to go. This is professional sports. They're making billions of dollars. Like, this is the future. We just need to get there, and then all this stuff will go away.